I was really hoping that this whole NFT gaming craze was starting to die down. After Ubisoft crashed and burned while trying to force their Quartz NFT marketplace down our throats, I figured it was a big enough signal to the rest of the gaming world to kind of cool it on the whole NFT insanity. But recently, another well-known publisher announced a $40 million deal to produce another blockchain-based game. This publisher was CCP, the creators of EVE Online, a studio that I've respected for a long time for pioneering an incredible in-game player-driven economy with EVE, and it appears that they're leveraging EVE once again as their new blockchain game is being built within the EVE universe. However, in their announcement of their new game, the language used to describe this venture is, of course, extremely vague, particularly when describing how this whole blockchain tech is going to be good for gamers. The announcement reads, "Now with advancements made within blockchain, we can forge a new universe deeply imbued with our expertise in player agency and autonomy, empowering players to engage in new ways." Of course, the article goes on with more vague language like this, and it's honestly hard to imagine that this game is going to be anything but another attempt to create an economy built on artificial scarcity that the devs can then build in their own blockchain transaction fees for. And that's pretty much how most of the NFT-based games work right now. Players are playing often with the promise of earning more tokens or increasing the value on their original investment. There's rarely a mention with these new game pitches about how NFTs are actually going to make games more fun, unless of course you factor in the somewhat legalized gambling nature of turning your game economy into a high-stakes speculative market, where fun is quickly replaced with addiction and poor financial investments. And the weirdest thing about this whole blockchain gaming craze to me is that these real money economies already exist in games, and they have for many years without the need for any sort of blockchain. Back in college, I wrote a paper about someone who became a millionaire, or at least owned assets worth over $1 million in the Second Life MMO. This was way back in 2006. Fast forward to present, and just a few weeks ago, someone bought a CSGO AK-47 skin for $160,000. That's right, $160K for a digital in-game item. I remember when people were upset that Blizzard was selling a World of Warcraft mount for $25. How things have progressed. I'll be honest, I'm not really upset about somebody spending this kind of money in a game on a skin. It shows that Counter-Strike has really solidified itself as one of the world's biggest competitive games, and it holds itself to a high standard, and now rare items within the game can achieve an insane value. Even if a lot of the skin economy is less about playing the game and more about speculating on the future value of that skin, since you can of course sell the skin on third-party websites. The fact that it's achieved these sales figures within a digital world I think is fascinating. Now, I'm certainly not here to make an argument about what is a good value of your money or how to spend it or anything like that. I am, however, trying to figure out if there's a real benefit to blockchain gaming, or if it really is just publishers with dollar signs in their eyes looking for an easy payday. It could even be argued that the blockchain tech being built into a game actually increases the economic vulnerability of that game, as we saw last year with the NFT game Axie Infinity having their sidechain hacked and $600 million worth of crypto stolen. Certainly not a confidence booster, especially when it happens to one of the biggest blockchain games in the world. And despite the relative security behind blockchain technology, ultimately the security of those crypto keys is in the hands of those that hold them. It used to be that a disgruntled video game developer used to just leak trailers online to get back at the company. Now they can steal $600 million worth of Ethereum. Progress. Now, I'll be honest here, I'm actually a fan of the concepts behind blockchain tech. The idea behind these decentralized, community-regulated systems are really cool, and I do think that someday we'll be able to use them for more and more, hopefully to empower people versus exploiting them. And I don't think we're quite there yet. However, when it comes to games, I'm definitely not convinced that this tech can actually bring major benefits to the gamers. And I actually polled you guys on the community tab on YouTube to see if you had any ideas about how blockchains could actually be used in beneficial ways, and I got some interesting answers. One possible angle would be using blockchains like Ethereum to piggyback all your game's monetary transactions on. The benefit would be not having to create a transactional database, since it would technically all be saved on the chain. However, the benefits of coding the blockchain into your game versus creating your own secure database are pretty debatable. For example, Diablo 3's real-world money auction house let players convert their actual cash into Diablo currency to buy and sell digital items on their marketplace, and that was totally free of any sort of blockchain tech. Now, another idea of a possible benefit for blockchains is to have MMO items actually tied into the blockchains themselves to improve the security of the economy. Several years ago, there was a bit of a scandal in Guild Wars 2 showing that massive item duping was going on, creating items that shouldn't have even been able to exist in the quantity that they did within the game world. And ultimately, it had terrible ramifications on the game's economy. And it's possible that tying some of these rare items into blockchain tech could potentially prevent certain duplication glitches from occurring. However, at the same time, I think one could argue that devs can and should be able to create dupe-safe databases, hence people feeling fairly secure about their Counter-Strike Go skins. But there is at least an argument to be made that since blockchains are literally designed to be community-validated databases, that this might be an improvement for games. Now, generally speaking, when it comes to the fundamental design of NFT games, an underlying idea is that you should be able to put money into the system, but that you can also take your money back out, or at least some of that money. And this generally contrasts traditional games that let you put money in to, say, buy new skins or DLC, but there isn't really an official system for getting that money back out. Hence, players trading CSGO skins on third-party websites. And of course, this ability isn't exclusive to blockchain tech, but when somebody says a blockchain game, people expect a system where you can sell your in-game items and convert them to real-world money. It's possible that the trend of blockchain games could start a larger wave of publishers looking to create games where players can transfer value from assets and games from one to another. And I actually kind of like that idea, but I just have my doubts about these so-called benevolent publishers trying to give players agency as sort of a mask for creating these fake economies and skimming money off the top. Now, in an ideal NFT gaming world, perhaps the system would look something like this. Say I played 1,000 hours of Battlefield games, and during that time I had a lot of fun playing, but I also earned some exceptionally rare skins which were backed up on the blockchain network. And say after 1,000 hours I decided I was done playing Battlefield for a while and I really wanted to play some Diablo instead. Ideally, I could sell some of the incredibly rare Battlefield skins that I had made on the NFT market and then transfer that profit into an account for Diablo 4 and use it to buy items or skins in that game. The two games don't have to be connected in the slightest, they don't have to be owned by the same company. As long as I can take money out of one game, I should be able to put it into the other game, right? As long as they both support real-world economies and a system for getting money in and out of them. This would make my time with Battlefield and Diablo feel much more valuable, as I'm able to transfer some of the digital assets on toward other games when I'm done. And I could totally see that being the future of gaming, where players are transferring assets and value between different titles and making it easier to get money in and out of a game system. However, the problem I'm seeing with publishers right now is this overly focused mindset on the NFTs themselves. Play to earn, as they call it, which often goes in contrast with just making a game that's fun. The main goal of these blockchain games becomes the monetary grind, with the gameplay becoming a distant second focus. Counter-Strike is an example of how it should work, in my opinion. Most gamers don't install Counter-Strike because they want to buy skins and open loot crates. Obviously some do, but the main draw is to actually play the game and have fun, with the skin economy being popular only because the game is popular. This economy is secondary to the gameplay, and it has to be, otherwise the items themselves are going to lose their value. If more game developers focused on making good games with blockchain tech as just a backup tool, then I think they would probably find a lot more success. Sadly though, as it stands, if I hear about a new NFT game coming out, I basically assume that it's going to be absolutely garbage gameplay built around inflating a false economy. The development process is completely backwards and should be met with backlash, as it's definitely predatory and doesn't lead to good game design. Now, further exploring this somewhat false idea that blockchain tech in games is going to create all kinds of new gameplay opportunities, there was a recent tweet by Dr. Disrespect, the world-famous streamer who is working on his own blockchain-based extraction shooter. In one of his tweets, he said this: "Imagine trying to extract an item that you discovered worth $100,000 on the chain." And he's implying that his game is going to increase the stakes of the typical extraction royale by basically putting real-world money into the modes so that you can win it. Now, of course, this idea was immediately met with the obvious counterpoints of how cheaters can and almost certainly will ruin that experience. Generally, any game event that injects real money prizes brings cheaters out in swarms. But also what I find confusing about this tweet is that blockchain tech isn't even needed to make something like this work. Just as an extraction shooter can track digital items that are account bound, devs could easily issue money rewards for collecting certain items in game. Just as you would need to connect a crypto wallet to a blockchain game if you wanted to transfer money in and out, most traditional game clients can easily be updated to send out payments as opposed to just receiving them by adding bank accounts or PayPal accounts. And the systems are for the most part pretty well trusted. Even the virtual credits on Steam, which don't run on blockchain technology, are still widely used and accepted by gamers. And while it's possible that blockchains may make certain things easier, it's definitely something that can be done outside of the blockchain economy. Just as somebody can buy and sell items in the Diablo 3 auction house, you could make a game that awarded those items from an extraction-based shooter and then sell them for the perceived value or be awarded by the developers for obtaining that item. Blockchain totally not needed. And when asked about why blockchains were needed specifically to make this work, Dr. Disrespect said multiple game platform functionality. Imagine having a digital collectible that has functionality in a completely different game that comes out 7 years later. And again, the flaws with this concept were immediately revealed by the Twitter responses, like the fact that in-game assets don't just magically transfer between games. Getting a cool AK-47 in Counter-Strike Go doesn't mean it's going to work in the future Counter-Strike game without tons and tons of work in reintegrating some of those items into the database. And the idea of transferring items between games that are 7 years apart in development is even more insane than just selling those items on the market and then transferring the money into a new game. A much simpler solution that doesn't lock you into games that are partnered with each other for item transfer or whatever that scenario would be. Now, of course, if Dr. Disrespect creates a game with in-game events where items are worth $100,000, no doubt it'll attract a ton of gamer interest. And the doc may absolutely be onto something here, whether or not the blockchain is even needed to make his concept work, though the hacking problem is still going to be a massive challenge. Now, one of the more confusing myths to me is how NFTs provide true ownership of digital assets. This idea has been propagated and sort of used by devs and companies to imply that users will have more transparency and control over their digital items. And while this might be somewhat true for cryptocurrency, where you can move your crypto between different wallets, between different exchanges, keep the keys safe in whatever type of storage you want, it doesn't exactly transfer to the gaming world. The whole problem with this is that if your digital item is tied to a specific game or world, then it's only accessible in that world. And outside of the game, all you own is a blockchain receipt. And do we even attribute value to a receipt? I'm always going to have the receipt for buying Battlefield Bad Company 2, but when DICE ultimately takes the servers offline later this year, is my receipt still worth something at that point? Is my game key worth anything after the servers go offline? Blockchain technology isn't going to save the value of my game or in-game purchases if that game doesn't exist anymore. Just like that $160,000 Counter-Strike AK-47 skin, the skin only holds any value if the game exists and is online. Blockchain or not, if the servers are down, you don't have an AK-47 skin, and if CSGO dies, then one day that skin dies with it, at least your ability to see and use that skin in the game. All you really have is proof that you bought an item. Now obviously the person who bought that skin believes that it will retain its value or even appreciate, as it certainly doesn't appear that Counter-Strike is going anywhere anytime soon. But the blockchain tech again seems like it wouldn't really add much value to this process other than just being an alternative, potentially more convenient way to conduct transactions. And I do say potentially, as blockchain tech would have to be used sparingly since it's not really designed to be as fast as game servers need for most situations, and there's often blockchain transaction fees that can be expensive depending on what platform you choose. So like if you were playing Diablo, I doubt that you could have every single random item that you picked up become immediately backed up on a blockchain. I don't think the chains are really designed to handle that level of constant data transfer, so ultimately your game would have to be designed carefully around the constraints of the blockchain and likely just become a hybrid system where all the data is first hosted on the game servers and only backed up periodically to a chain, or only certain items backed up to a chain. Now, one of the best use cases for blockchain tech in gaming that I've heard is to simply just regulate game keys with it. Since so many game keys are stolen and then resold on gray markets, a blockchain could help mitigate that theft and leave a public paper trail, thus helping out a lot of indie devs fight piracy and so on and so forth. But again, that makes very little difference to the actual game design, nor does it empower the gamer themselves. So while it's possible that blockchains may provide gamers with some cool features at some point in time, I'm still left kind of scratching my head every time some publisher announces a new NFT game or service that's going to enable gamers to do more, especially when they never specifically say what that more actually is, or when they do try and explain it and there's just massive flaws in their logic. Maybe someday we'll all be playing NFT blockchain games, but at the moment, every time I hear NFT game, I immediately think scam, crap gameplay, and false scarcity economics. What do you guys think? Are there any examples of ways you think blockchains will benefit gaming, or is it a bit of a joke to you? Let me know in the comments, and next check out this video on amazing games that have failed. Sometimes it only takes one misstep to turn a fantastic idea into a total failure. As always guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.